You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 55, Zombies Inside of You. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm so glad that you're here. Have you quit being a librarian and started being a warrior? What exactly has that looked like for you? Well done. It's hard to quit being a librarian. I like the comfort and safety of learning and debating ideas rather than having to get out and get dirty and discouraged trying to implement them. So, good for you. That's where the magic happens. Today, we're going to talk about zombies that live inside of you. We know we all have cancer cells living inside of us, and as long as our cellular machinery and immune system are working well, those cells don't grow into a large enough cell burden to be called cancer. But we're not talking about cancer cells today. They're not zombies. They're cells that grow and divide too quickly, too rapidly. They'd be like, what, rabbits? Killer rabbits. Yes! We love that show. My kids all dressed up as Monty Python characters for Halloween one year. Do you remember the killer rabbit that flies up and decapitates people? Oh my gosh. If you're ever going to watch that movie again, I suggest watching it with the captions on. I have 2 boys who wear hearing aids, so we always have the subtitles on, but it's the only movie we've ever seen where the captions are hilarious, separate from the spoken dialogue. More people should do that. The world would be a better place, I'm telling you. Okay, back on track. Zombies are not the same as killer bunnies. We know that in order to stay alive, we can't just stay the same. Our cells keep replicating and dividing. There's something called the Hayflick limit, which states that cells can divide about 40 to 60 times before they cannot divide anymore, and they're removed by programmed cell death called apoptosis. This is the normal cellular lifespan. And even though it sounds bad, we do want cell death to occur on schedule, especially because the cells at the end of their lives are usually weak. Our bodies are awesome at recycling the components to make newer, stronger cells to replace the ones that succumbed to apoptosis. We talked a little bit about it in episode 35 about hormesis. Our battle cry from that episode was, only the strong survive. But sometimes cells stop dividing and they don't die. They stay there, undead, using energy and releasing chemicals into our bodies. They're called senescent cells. Senescent cells are very much associated with all the processes of aging. They release chemicals that cause inflammation and can even start making the cells next to them turn senescent too. Like a bad apple in a bushel of good apples starts accelerating the rotting process of those around it. Senescent cells prevent tissue development and repair and are associated with frailty, muscle weakness, wrinkles, neurodegeneration, heart disease, cancer, and other common diseases of aging. Senescent cells are especially common in skin and adipose tissue. Senescent cells tend to get abnormally large with enlarged dysfunctional mitochondria. You know I love your mitochondria and I don't want them to be dysfunctional. Something I didn't know until I started preparing for this episode is that some senescent processes are good. It's called acute or transient senescence. Chronic senescence is called aging. But acute senescence does cool things like after an injury or wound, fibroblasts come stitch things up with scar tissue, but then transient senescence tells those cells to become senescent and stop dividing so we don't get way too much scar tissue. Just the right amount to heal. Eventually, the immune system comes along and tells those senescent cells to die. Beautiful. Problems start to crop up when we have too many undead cells around. Remember that they secrete harmful and inflammatory bioactive substances, degradative enzymes that directly damage tissues, proteases, inflammatory cytokines, and chemicals that tend to turn the nearby cells senescent too. The number of senescent cells we have increases with age. One of the best ways to keep your biological age younger than your chronological age is to keep your number of senescent cells as low as possible. Cells shouldn't turn senescent very often, and when they do, they should be spotted and killed by the immune system. When we have too many senescent cells, our immune system starts to become less efficient. This is bad for more than just our likelihood to catch a cold. Your immune system is critical for keeping you young, resilient, and strong, and seeking and destroying baby cancer cells. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg scenario. Senescent cells cause immune system dysfunction, and immune system dysfunction results in more senescent cells hanging around. Same with metabolic dysfunction. The more senescent cells you have, the more likely your metabolism is not going to function well. Your mitochondria and energy production are impaired. This is a big problem since you need energy to carry out your big plans. Your sensitivity to insulin also goes down. This is huge. Probably the most important thing you can do for your health and longevity is to make sure you stay as sensitive as possible to insulin. Hard to do in our modern society. You really have to be committed to being abnormal to make this happen. But you can do it, and the results of your effort to be abnormally sensitive to insulin is abnormally good longevity. Sidestepping all the common diseases of aging. Having high baseline levels of insulin causes problems beyond just having high blood sugar, which we know is bad and causes blindness, kidney disease, non-healing wounds, heart problems, etc. But if you want to learn more about insulin, one of my favorite people to follow is Dr. Benjamin Bickman. He's a professor at a university about 30 minutes away from me called Brigham Young University. Whenever I see his name as a guest on a podcast, I'm sure to listen. He has a book called Why We Get Sick, and it's free on Audible. Anyway, senescence decreases your sensitivity to insulin, and decreasing your sensitivity to insulin through lifestyle choices increases your senescent cell burden. Another chicken and the egg scenario. Cellular senescence is intimately connected to cancer, diabetes, osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease, strokes, Alzheimer's, other dementias, arthritis, autoimmune conditions, eyesight decline, hearing decline, decreased thinking speed, decreased muscle strength, and decreased mobility. Each of those could be their own topic with an accompanying discussion of how the zombie cells promote the progression of that condition. Senescence very much promotes the development of type 2 diabetes and the degenerative complications of diabetes. Some people even think, and are currently researching whether, senescent cells are connected to the cytokine storm that makes COVID-19 so deadly. Some of the biomarkers on the membranes of senescent cells function as receptors for the COVID-19 virus. So there's definitely more to be learned about the connection between zombie cells and COVID infection. While less deadly, senescent cells play a big role in the health and appearance of our largest organ, our skin. Older skin has more senescent cells, which contribute to the formation of wrinkles and age spots, but also an increased susceptibility to skin disorders and skin damage. There's a company founded by 4 female PhDs who have developed a topical skin peptide supplement called OS01. Not the most original name, if you ask me. I'm sure they could have come up with something more catchy. Geezer pleaser, or counting crow's feet, or scrum pox away, something. Anyway, but, zombie be gone. There's gotta be something cutesy like poopery, but for zombie cells. It'll come to me later. So, this peptide reduces the number of senescent cells in your skin. This slows aging and kind of turns back the clock. It significantly reduces the appearance of wrinkles and age spots, and it thickens and strengthens your skin. The OS01 peptide reduces DNA damage caused by UVB radiation and increases the natural production of collagen and hyaluronic acid in your skin. I'm not trying to make this a free commercial for them or anything, just a cool product that I love and I thought you might want to hear about in the context of senescence. I've been using it on my face for 2 or 3 months, and I can actually see a noticeable difference. When we were at the Top Gun Maverick movie a month or 2 ago, I kept reaching up and feeling my face there in the darkened theater because it was the first time I really noticed how much softer and smoother and more baby-like my face felt. I just got the body lotion too. I would put it everywhere every day, but it's pretty expensive, so I'm trying to be judicious. Okay, enough about that. It's called One Skin if you're interested in it. I'll put a link in the show notes for $20 off if it sounds like something you want to try. Totally fine if it's not. Coupon codes are hard to come by with them, so take advantage. But I have discovered that if you attend one of their free monthly educational webinars, then they'll give you a coupon code for 15% off. Okay, other than this topical peptide, what can be done to reduce our senescent cell burden? We already know that having a strong immune system and good metabolic function help. Since one of the problems with senescent cells are the pro-inflammatory and tissue-damaging molecules that they secrete, there's a new group of compounds called xenomorphics that attempt to prevent or ameliorate the damage from the secretions of senolytic cells. There are also compounds called senolytics that selectively clear senescent cells by inducing apoptosis, which is cell death. I don't play Halo or any other video games, but I just found out that if you kill 10 zombies in Halo 3, you earn the title of Hell's Janitor. Thanks, Urban Dictionary. This could play into the catchy name I'm trying to come up with. Something about a janitor, still not quite sure. I think senolytics would qualify as zombie killers. There are a few in clinical trials for atherosclerosis, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, hepatic steatosis, COPD, pulmonary fibrosis, and macular degeneration. One senolytic we won't even talk about is called dasatinib or Sprycel. It's a chemotherapy drug for leukemia, and you don't want to have to take it if you don't have leukemia. The other main two are quercetin and fisetin. Quercetin is a common dietary polyphenol flavonoid. It's like bright yellow. I always think of it as being in onions, but the food with the highest amount of quercetin is actually capers, then buckwheat, dill, cilantro, and then red onion, then kale and lingonberries. Yay, we love lingonberries at our house, only because they're Swedish. Organically grown tomatoes have 80% more quercetin than traditionally grown tomatoes. Some honeys have quercetin too. The average daily consumption of quercetin from food is 18 to 50 milligrams. Supplements are pretty inexpensive and usually have around 250 milligrams. Doses in studies range from 100 to 1,000 milligrams a day. In addition to helping remove zombie cells, quercetin is an antioxidant, antiviral, antimicrobial, and anti-inflammatory. And it helps enhance the absorption of zinc, so it's a good one to have in your COVID exposure plan. Eating foods with quercetin is good, but I do think it's a good one to at least consider taking as a supplement. Fisetin is another common dietary polyphenol flavonoid. It's also yellow. Strawberries have the most, then apples, persimmons, onions, grapes, and cucumbers. Animals supplemented with fisetin live 10 to 30% longer than those who aren't. Fisetin is a bit newer to the supplement scene, but so far it seems to be more powerful at removing senescent cells than quercetin. It's also an antioxidant and works on a couple of other pathways that we might talk about another day, activating sirtuins and AMP kinase, which are both also anti-aging. Most people get around 0.2 to 0.4 milligrams of fisetin from food. Supplements are usually 50 to 100 milligrams, but are kind of all over the place. I think it's one worth thinking about taking as a supplement now or someday. It's not one I would consider one of the foundational supplements, though. Luckily, it's also pretty inexpensive. One more to mention is spermidine. This one is unfortunately much more expensive than quercetin or fisetin, but it does help promote autophagy and the clearing out of senescent cells too. We already have spermidine in our bodies, but we make less of it as we age. You can get spermidine from eating mushrooms, soybeans, nuts, and wheat germ, or from the Spermidine Life supplement that provides similar autophagy effects as fasting without having to fast, which is pretty cool. It's awesome, but something to add only after you've got all the basic fundamental stuff locked in. There is some interplay with other anti-aging supplements like nicotinamide riboside or Niagen, which is awesome, but its effect on senescence is a little bit secondary. Other than taking quercetin and fisetin as supplements and or eating a lot of strawberries, onions, and cilantro, which honestly sounds delicious, there are some other things we can do to influence our senescent cell burden. The first one is the one thing that has been proven over and over and over in study after study after study to increase lifespan. Do you remember what it is? We've talked about it before. It's the answer to most questions. Calorie restriction. It has been shown in studies to reduce the number of senescent cells in colons, adipose tissue, and kidneys. High-calorie diets have shown to increase senescence. The ketogenic diet has also shown to reduce senescent cell burden in vascular smooth muscle and endothelial cells. That makes a lot of sense as high insulin and high blood sugar drive senescence up. Another study I found was a methionine-restricted diet that decreases senescence and the harmful chemicals senescent cells make called SASPs. Methionine is an essential amino acid, so you don't want to completely eliminate it. It is highest in turkey, beef, tuna, pork, tofu, milk, ricotta, and Brazil nuts. So a little bit more in an animal-based protein minus the tofu and Brazil nuts. Probably not worth your energy to try and tightly control. Unless that's fun to you for some reason, then go for it. The main thing you can do is to not eat too many calories. Whatever would be considered a, quote, high-calorie diet is detrimental. Who knows what that actually means? It would be different for everyone. And to keep your insulin level and blood sugar optimal. This is huge for health, energy, and longevity in a ton of areas beyond just zombie cells. Your insulin and blood sugar levels influence your advanced glycation end products, overall inflammaging level, immune system functioning, mitochondrial energy production, hormone production, and so much more. What do you think another lifestyle choice that influences senescence would be? It's another easy one. The answer to almost everything. Yes, you're so smart. Exercise. Exercise has shown to reduce senescence in hearts, livers, adipose tissues, endothelial cells, and leukocyte cells. I hope it's worth it to you to know about these zombie cells. I don't want you to become one of the unfortunately very common walking dead people who are very burdened by these senescent cells. These zombies sit around sucking your life force away and not being productive members of your cellular community. When you're burdened by the inflammation, tissue damage, and energy depletion of senescent cells, you have less soul force to project out to the world around you. It's a lot more work to show up like the firecracker that you are to create the change in the world that you're meant to make when you have a plague of zombies multiplying inside of you. Senescent cells decrease your health in several ways, like insulin sensitivity and blood glucose control, but those same things, like decreased insulin sensitivity and higher blood glucose, can increase your senescent cells. But if you can get in there and break that cycle with a few smart decisions now, you'll significantly decrease your chances of frailty, weakness, osteoporosis, dementia, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, poor eyesight, poor hearing, and poor mobility. That's totally worth it. Thank you so much for being here and for being so awesome. Next week, we're going to talk about the new language you need to learn. Until then, resist the undead uprising and don't be normal. Hey there, do you have a great idea for a topic I should cover on the podcast? I would love to hear from you. Click the link in the show notes and tell me what you think I should talk about next. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.